Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Dravitam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, Ariel, the first chant is 3 verses from a hymn called the Guru Stotra. And I do that out of respect and love for my teacher. And then the second one is one of the Shanti mantras from the Upanishads that invokes our study, that we may study well together. So we are in the 3rd chapter, Karma Yoga. And let's review the 5 elements of Karma Yoga that we're going to cover in chapters 3, 4, and 5. Act. We do not gain freedom by running away from the world. How should we act? Krishna has said everyone is impelled into action helplessly by the force of Prakriti, our nature. What can restraint do? But that doesn't mean if I have tendencies to be a horse thief, I should go out and steal horses. We are going to take these proclivities and use them in a way to serve the society in the yajna spirit. That's the 3rd element. No longer working for some company, you're working for God. Your customers are not ordinary people, your customers are God. Then we renounce our attachment to the fruits of action. We've already started on that one. All we get is the work itself, never to the outcome. Q is understanding this very clearly now. Yes. And the last one, most difficult, our renunciation of the sense of agency. There's no real person there doing the doing. It's guna and karma. Or for those of us who come from a Christian background, Jesus said the same thing. He said, I of myself do no thing, it is the Father within that doeth the work. Make me a channel of thy peace, the St. Francis prayer says. We get that I and mine out of the way. All right, what verse are we on for tonight?
We're on verse 8.
Verse 8. Can you, for chapter 3, verse 8, can you help us out, please, Deepa?
नियतं कुरु कर्मत्वं कर्मजागो ह्यकर्मणा शरीरायात्रपि च ते न प्रसिद्ध्येत कर्मणा. You perform your bounden duty, for action is superior to inaction. Even the maintenance of the body would not be possible for you by inaction.
So niyatam karmas, you're bound in duty, what's appropriate for your life. Now, a lot of subtlety in this. So Ariel, have you studied the Yoga Sutras yet?
Yeah, studied a little bit.
So you're familiar with yamas and niyamas, right?
A little bit.
Okay. The yamas and niyamas in the Raja Yoga tradition are the moral precepts. And all of them can be reduced to one. Which one do you think it is? Take a guess. Ahimsa. What's ahimsa mean?
Non-violence.
Non-injury, non-violence. In other words, don't be a jerk. So simple. Now that means not only towards other people, but towards ourselves. There's no virtue in self-abuse either. So your niyatam karma, he calls it bound in duty. What is it that we're enjoined to do in life? Now, the exoteric meaning is if you're a Brahmin, you're supposed to be a scholar or a priest. If you're a Kshatriya, be a warrior or a lawyer or something. If you're a Vaishya, be a merchant. If you're a Shudra, be a laborer. But let's subtleize that meaning. We find ourselves in karmic predicaments in life based on the force of the past. We call this our prarabdha karma, the karma of the now, the karma of this very lifetime. We do not gain freedom by running away from our responsibilities. But we want to do those responsibilities impeccably. One of the yamas and niyamas is satyam. What does satyam mean?
Truth.
More than just truth. It also means integrity. To live a life of integrity. Show up as a woman or a man of your word. When you say you're going to do X, Y, and Z, you do it. Simple things. Oh, text, I'll meet you at 4 for coffee and we'll hang out. Don't show up at 4:10. Show up at 4. Begin to become a person of your word, a person of integrity. Satyam. So whether you're a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom, or you're the executive of a big company, or you're teaching yoga, or you've got a high-powered job with a big corporation, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We do our niyatam karma, our bounden duty, where we are in life, with integrity, according to the Dharma. We do not gain freedom by avoiding the world's responsibilities. Now, many of us yogis, after a while, come to find that life flows a lot easier if we have a bit of simplicity in life. I was talking with a fellow on the phone, got about $6,000 in credit card debt. He's got a good job, he's a nurse. Crashed his motorcycle, so he spends $10,000 on a brand new motorcycle. Has that to pay off. It's cold. So you know what his solution was to the cold? Buy a truck.
Cybertruck.
I don't know what it is. It's not a cyber. It's not one of those Teslas. But it's a Toyota Tacoma, I think. But the point is, there's nothing wrong with getting toys. But guess what happens when you buy toys? You got to pay for them. And if you have to pay for them, guess what it means that you have to do? What's the answer?
Work for it.
What?
Work for them.
Work! Yeah. So if you're working 60 hours a week and this doesn't give you time for your sadhana, maybe it's time to look at balance. There is no virtue in poverty. No one thinks about money more than a poor person. But there's a lot of freedom in a life of simplicity. And if you think a new sweater, a new pair of shoes, better jewelry, another car, a trip here, I don't like the apartment I have, I need a bigger, better one, higher up floor. Nothing wrong with this, but you've got to pay for it. And if you have to pay for it, you have to work for it. Any thoughts on this? So you get to choose. You get to choose what's a healthy balance for you. And remember what Krishna said last week. Everybody's impelled into action helplessly by the force of Prakriti, their own nature. So sometimes we just have to accept these are my proclivities. Got to work through it all. So like Hugh and your craziness with the sale of your business. You probably didn't particularly think this was going to happen.
Nope.
But now that it is, you move through it with as much integrity as you can. That's your niyata karma. That's your obligatory duty. You do not gain freedom by withdrawing from the world. For some of us, at some periods in our lives, we are drawn to that. And if that is your karma, it will happen easily. Back in the late 70s, Swamiji had decided that it was time for him to retire. He wanted to retire and do more writing. And he wanted to turn the Chinmaya mission over to Swami Dayananda. And then they had a big argument. Dayananda walks out. Chinmaya spent the rest of his life traveling all over the world. He died with his boots on, still doing jnana yajnas all over the world. It wasn't his karma to retire. The Lord wanted him to keep working. All right, any thoughts on this? Next verse.
यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणो यन्त्र लोकोऽयं कर्म बन्धन तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर. The world is bound by actions other than those performed for the sake of sacrifice. Do thou, therefore, O son of Kunti, perform action for the sake, for their sake alone,
Yes.
free from all attachment, and in parentheses for yajna.
So yajna is a Sanskrit word that means a ritual sacrifice. So any of you here do like homa at home when you were kids? Did you?
Yeah.
Did you have the altar and you did homa? That's a yajna.
Yeah.
It's a little bit older ritual than puja. But the idea here is, so tell us what the elements are when you do a yajna.
Well, there's usually a homa container, which is a copper vessel typically. And then there's fire. And then the priest usually kicks off any homa by invoking first Ganpati and then the god of fire. And then the other gods and the oblations are offered to them in the form of different grains and food offerings and ghee.
And what do they do with these offerings?
They chant while offering, and
what do they physically do with the offerings?
They put it into the fire.
They put it into the fire. Yes,
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
And so that part is the yajna, like when you sacrifice something that you possess, but it's symbol, like you don't actually put money in it, but when you put rice in the fire, it represents your wealth and abundance. So each of the items that you put in the fire represents that you're taking a portion of your wealth and offering it to the god.
Yes. So do you all get the idea of this yajna, this idea of sacrifice? So this is a major metaphor that Gita is going to use. So the idea of the sacrifice, even the word in English means to make things sacred. We do it as service. We give everything to God. I like to say you now have a new employer. Your employer is Lord Krishna. If you're a salesperson, you now have new customers. Your customers are Lord Krishna. If you're a manager, your team, you have a new team. Gopis. Baby Krishnas. However you want to see it. Everyone and everything is a reflection of the divine. And we do everything as service. Our whole life becomes an oblation, a gift to the infinite. A slogan that I like to use, my job this lifetime is to spend myself in love. Get it all out. Get it all done. But how? In love, in seva, in service, in the yajna spirit. So we work. How do we work? According to our prakriti, our nature. our swadharma, but in the spirit of selfless service. Now, why are we learning about karma yoga? So we've talked a bit about what vasanas are. Is this a term you've heard before, Ariel? A vasana is an impression left in the unconscious as the result of previous egoistic actions. They're what cause me to desire and then act in the world. It's why we do what we do. We act according to our vasanas. And vasanas have the power to cover the mind. They rob us of self-experience. So if I think I'm a person and I think the world is separate from me, inherently joy-giving or misery-producing, and I gotta work real hard to get what I want, means I'm under the throes of vasana. You can't flip them off like a light switch. In the beginning, they're very powerful. So we practice karma yoga to exhaust our vasanas without creating new. This is the essence of karma yoga. We do the work. We enjoy. We accomplish. We strive for excellence. We have goals. But not for my own selfish needs, but for the good of the society. As seva, as yajna, as a sacrifice. Any thoughts on this idea? All right, next verse.
Yajnarthat karmanonyantra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. The world is bound by actions other than those performed. Though I've done this already, sorry.
No.
Yeah, for the sake of sacrifice, do thou therefore, son of Kunti, perform actions for
No,
the sake of...
the first one. I don't think we did this one. We didn't talk about the world is bound yet.
Okay, so let's do this one. The world is bound by actions other than those performed for the sake of sacrifice. Do thou, therefore, O son of Kunti, perform action for the sake, for that sake,
For that
alone,
sake.
Yes.
free from all attachments,
Yes.
for yajna.
So what's the opposite of doing things in the yajna spirit? Doing it as an egoistic desire. I'm going to do this action, but what am I going to get out of it? It's all about me and my pleasures. And if we get caught up in that, frequently then our integrity starts to go. We quit thinking about the good that we may be doing for the society. It's all about getting my needs met, my comforts, and F you to the rest of the world. So this is how most people function in the world. They act in the world selfishly for their own ego needs, which then cements deeper vasana in the mind, which covers the mind further and further. Even though we may be very successful, we're very deluded. And we're all caught up with concepts like revenge, redress, getting back at people, lying, cheating, stealing. Again, we were talking about your possible future colleagues and what motivated them to perhaps not act ethically. And it was fear. See? So always when we're thinking of ourselves and what can I get out of it, these are the motivations that bind us and bind the world. All you have to do in this country is just look at the current political atmosphere. See a whole lot of people who think winning is what it's about. For their own aggrandizement. People, world suffers because of this sort of motivation. This is the opposite of the yajna spirit. This is all rooted in egoism. And you can even do something that's a noble profession from an ignoble place. So, for example, Ariel, you're becoming a yoga teacher, right?
Hopefully, yeah, in the future.
And I have met people, all they're thinking about is the money. I want to see how big classes I can get, and my marketing, and being on this social media, and yada, 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 yada. It's not so much about helping people, it's about making money. Nothing inherently wrong with it. But that further binds the psyche. It's not the same as when you go into the yoga studio with a prayer in your heart. Doesn't matter whom the Lord brings. I'm here to serve them. Swamiji was the head of a worldwide mission, the Chinmaya mission. Early on, someone asked him, well, Swamiji, what's your title? He thought for a moment. He said, Mukhya Sevak. What's Mukhya Sevak mean?
Main servant.
Head servant, yeah. Mukha is the face or head. It's the head servant. Not the one who's to be worshipped and adored. Today they call him Puja Guru Dev. Swami Chinmayananda. We roll over in his grave. What's Puja Guru Dev mean? Worshipful, godlike guru. He was Swamiji. Tirelessly working to serve the society. Started hospitals and schools and microeconomies, always, always, always serving the society. He's told us to do the same. And the opposite viewpoint is what binds the world. Any thoughts on this? Act according to your nature in the yajna spirit, the spirit of selfless sacrifice. Next verse.
Saha yagya praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyatva meshavostvishta kamadrik. The Prajapati, having in the beginning of creation created mankind together with sacrifices, said, "By this shall you prosper. Let this be the milch cow of your desire, Kamadhuk, the mythological cow who yields all desired objects."
Yes. So the Kamadenu, the Kamaduk, you milk the cow. Anybody here know how to milk a cow? I bet Jory can milk a cow. Anyway, so the idea is the milk cow of desire. So what is, this is all metaphors, mystic symbolism. Prajapati, the root is ja, which is to be born, to live. So the progenitor, that's the same word. Progenitor and Prajapati are the same. What's the first cosmic impulse? Created the world, created people to do sacrifice. Now, the exoteric meaning of this, the outer meaning, if you're a Brahmin, part of what you're supposed to do is do certain yajnas because the mythology is that's what keeps the cosmos in order and running. Was your family taught this when you were a kid?
No.
I think Anand's family does that.
Hmm.
That's the exoteric meaning. It's kind of like the Pharaoh used to do a sacrifice that would ensure that the Nile would flood and water the fields, that kind of thing. But the deeper meaning is we all are meant to work. Now, there are some people who may be trust fund kids who are given lots of money, and all they do is go to parties and do lines of cocaine, fly all over the world and indulge. That's not the goal of life. And yet there are others who may come from great privilege, who have a family slogan, if you have great privilege, it means great responsibility. It means you're supposed to do something of value to the society if you're given privilege. It's not about self-indulgence. The stupid and fundamentally unsatisfying. So whether you're a person of modest resources or you have great wealth, it doesn't matter. You'll find your life will have meaning for you if you live a life that's purpose-driven, that you want to make a difference. You want to improve things the best you can. And if you're not living with that motivation, Gita's challenge is, can you move into that? You all know who Bill Gates is?
Mhm.
At one point, he was the richest man in the world. Microsoft. What's he doing now? What's he do with those billions of dollars now?
Giving them away,
No,
investing.
no. He's doing seva with them. He's funding projects all over the world for the betterment of humanity. It's not just giving it away. It's not just charity. It's very conscious, very active investment in making a difference in the world. Look at someone like Jimmy Carter, who just passed away. Some people would say he wasn't that effective as a president. Boy, what did he do as a post-presidency? Habitat for Humanity, the Carter Foundation. One of his greatest accomplishments, he ended the affliction of guinea worm in Africa, which had killed kids for generations. Man of privilege and power. What do you do with it? So, you can make a difference. You don't have to be rich and famous, but right within the context of your own life, right here, right now, in terms of the society, don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution to the issues. You are responsible. You don't step up and make a difference. Who will? So the yogi acting in the world doesn't leave good works to other people. We have a responsibility. Any thoughts on this? Now, it may be something as simple as being a good godparent to a sibling's children. You'll know. Doesn't have to be something huge and fantastic. It may be something as simple as you're the one who sweeps and hoses off the sidewalk in front of your apartment house. Somebody needs to do it. It may be something as simple as once a month going down to the shore to pick up trash. It may be volunteering to work at a food bank. If you're older and you don't have the physical energy, maybe it's writing a check for various organizations whose work you believe in that are doing good for the society or the arts. There's always a way, no matter what our resources are, to act in the world in the yajna spirit. Any thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu ya va parasparam bhavayanta shreya paramavapsyasa vapsyatha. Sorry, I think you should get glasses. With this, you do nourish the gods, and may those devas nourish you. Thus, nourishing one another, you shall attain the highest good.
So, in the paradigm of Hindu sacrifice, for example, if you have a friend, an Indian, and they're opening up a restaurant or a shop, what they may do is install an idol, a murti of, say, Lakshmi. Why would they install Lakshmi?
She's the giver of wealth.
Yeah. And then once they install the murti, what do they do next?
They pray.
They hire the pujari to come and do a puja to enliven the murti. And what do you want to do? You want to propitiate the god so the god will propitiate you. Now, if you believe in these external personalities, that's fine. But let's look at a deeper understanding of Deva. In the tradition, the Devas are the presiding principles over the forces of nature. Agni for fire, Varuna for the ocean, etc. Indra, the thunder god. But more practically speaking, the Devas are the presiding principles over any field of human endeavor. So, what do you do for a living?
I manage writers.
So you need to propitiate the writing god. It's funny because in English we borrowed from the Greeks. Anybody ever heard the term muse?
Mm-hmm.
An artist, oh, the muse was with me. Same idea. Ariel, what are you doing for a living right now?
I work at a big company as a consultant.
As a consultant?
Yeah.
So you propitiate the consulting god, meaning a field of human endeavor. If you work hard and learn the expertise in your field and serve that principle, the consulting god will reward you. You'll get more contracts. You in the investment business. So you, who's the fellow who's the exchequer in heaven? Starts with a K sound.
Yeah.
Kubera?
Kuber, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So you propitiate Kuber.
And the lawyer god.
And the lawyer god. But what do? You see, you learn the expertise in that field of human endeavor. And if I'm a retired musician, so I propitiated the music god, meaning I studied, I practiced, learned my craft, so that I could then serve the society with the expertise I had. In some areas, devas will mean the sense organs. But in this section of Gita, the primary interpretation of them is the presiding principle over a field of human endeavor. Now, in many, many Indian homes, this is a custom. Off in the corner of the dining room, there'll be an altar. And Mummy has prepared the food, and she puts some food in a thali, and then what does she do with it?
She'll offer it in the temple to the god.
Yeah. After dinner,
Before.
and then what happens?
Then some people mix whatever food was offered into the pot of to be shared among the actual humans and then eat that.
So the point is, we cook food for the god and we get the leftovers. That's the symbolism. And the whole symbolism is the cooking of the food is a symbol of our work, our activity. And what do? The first foods go to the god, meaning the presiding principle governing that field of human endeavor. And we make it sacred. We do it in the spirit of sacrifice. And if we propitiate the god, then the god will serve us. So, for example, let's use Deepa. So, if people come under your tutelage, people you manage, and their attitude is, I will do as little work as possible. I'll cut and paste my writing, or maybe have AI do it, and get away with as much as possible, work as little as possible, and hope they don't fire me. You ever had people like that?
Yeah.
And what's the effect on your work? What's the effect on the company? What's the effect on the product?
Well, the first impact is everyone else has to pick up their slack.
Yeah.
And then it puts the manager in a spot to have the hard conversation. And if the person doesn't change, then they have to be managed out.
Yeah, that's a polite way to say fired, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So see what happens when we don't work in the yajna spirit. The god doesn't protect us. We have to do our part. So this is the deeper symbolism of this idea of the Vedic sacrifice. Doesn't mean Krishna's saying go home and do ritual. You can do that. I understand, I'm never ever saying not to do ritual. If you're a Christian, go to church. If you're a Buddhist, go to the temple. I don't, that, we're talking about something deeper. We're talking about karma yoga. Act. Cannot gain freedom from refraining from action. According to your niyatam karmas, you're bound in duty. And do your best to ride the horse in the direction it's going. You will be most efficient if you work at something you love. But do it in the yajna spirit. Do it in the spirit of selfless service. Make it sacred. Serve the society. Have a purpose-driven life. Endeavor to make a contribution rather than fulfilling our own selfish needs. If you work at a job that you hate just because you want the money, what do you do when you get home? You take the money and you spend it satisfying your most animal instincts. Food, sex, sleep. And if you're involved in that, the harder you work, the richer the company gets, and the more miserable you get. This is what Marx called alienated labor. Swamiji was a Marxist, by the way, in his youth. There was always that flavor about it. You have a right to work at what you love. If you're working at something you are alienated from just for the money, it's an unfulfilling life. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Ishtan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yajna bhavitaha terdadattan pradayebhyo yo bhukte stena eva sa. Moreover, the devas, nourished by the sacrifice, will give you the desired objects. Indeed, he who enjoys objects given by the devas without offering in return to them is verily a thief.
Yes. So the idea is if mummy cooks dinner and doesn't give it to the God first, we eat sin. We're a thief. So if we act in the world other than as service, other than with the desire to propitiate the presiding principle over a field of human activity, we grossify the mind. What is a sin? Now, the Judeo-Christian notion of sin is, kind of like cosmic traffic cop. But in yoga, we have papam, merit, punya, merit, papam, sin. But punya, merit, is any activity, gross, meaning it's a physical activity, or subtle, a mental activity, that brings more quiescence to the mind. We call that punya. Any activity we engage in that grossifies the mind or grossifies the body, we call papa. So, if you steal something from the department store, you may have a rationale. Well, it's just a big corporation. They're ripping us all off anyway. I have a right to it. But at some level, you're a thief. Think, okay? Let's say you got away with it. What is Macy's gonna do to deal with what's the word the retailers use?
Shrinkage.
Shrinkage, yes. I love that. It's such a euphemism. What do they do to deal with shrinkage?
Raise prices to adjust for it.
The corporate heads don't take a pay cut? No. What did they do? Say it again.
They adjust prices for the expected amount of shrinkage.
Oh, so who ends up paying for your shoplifting?
Everyone else.
Another customer. Thing. And at some level, you've injured people. That leaves an impression in the psyche. Further grossifies the mind. Or something as simple. You get angry at someone you care about and you say something or yell at them. How do you feel afterward? do we want to do? Bury that feeling. Eat at it, drink at it, smoke a joint at it, deal games at it. To not feel it. What we usually don't want to do is go to that person and say, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Those things stay in the psyche. That's papa. And we've been screwing up for lifetimes. There's a lot of it in there. So this is why a yogi begins to change their behavior. We're back to our yamas and niyamas. Ways to start to clean up those kleshas, those afflictions in the psyche. Living a life of integrity. Now, how do we propitiate the gods, and how do they then satisfy us? And this is the Kamadhenu, the milch cow of desire. So back in the old-timey days when I was teaching music at Cal State Hayward, there would be youngsters who would come in and you could tell, oh, this is a really great voice. Someone else would say, it's okay. But I learned that talent is cheap. The ones who put in the work to practice every day. If I had like an evening seminar or something, I'd come downstairs and I'd walk through the music building and I'd hear the kids practicing, and you could tell who was enjoying it. Practicing. I'd had the thought, they're going to make it. Oh, having a career is just luck. Well, we invoke luck. You know what luck is? Good preparation at a moment of opportunity. That's what luck is. We have a part to do, which is our own hard work in life. So if you act in the world and have been able to do what you love, if you do what you love, work becomes the highest form of play. Play is the highest form of work. And you do it in the yajna spirit. You have the greatest chance of being successful in life. If, on the other hand, you're in it for the money only, or the power, or the prestige, you don't care whom you hurt on the way up the corporate ladder, chances are you may be bitter and unhappy because your life didn't turn out the way you thought it was supposed to. Don't you know I'm special? You should be treating me differently. So here in these first chapters, in the first verses in the third chapter, we get a recipe for an intelligent work life. It's important, especially those of you who are young, to do our best to find something we love, that we believe in, that we're committed to. Because if you're fighting your nature, you're working at a job you don't like, you don't love, it's real hard to get up and go to work every day. And what you may like is not what the next person likes. So what did you do for the past 10, 15 years or so, Hugh?
Manage investments.
I can't think of anything that I would rather not do. But you loved it.
It was great for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember on my church job, I had this accompanist, Irene. She was so talented. And one of the things I didn't particularly enjoy it, and it was really hard for me to do, is file. So after my choir would finish performing a piece of music, I had to go back in the folder, and the folder had to go back in the file cabinet. And I can remember between services, I would go back there and Irene would be filing music. I'd say, Irene, you don't have to do that. We don't pay you to file. The volunteers, the people in the choir can do that. And she says, oh, I like to file. It relaxes me. No accountant for taste. She enjoyed it. She enjoyed it. So we can't judge by what other people find enjoyable as work. What we need to do is pay attention to what is purposeful. Act according to your nature, your swadharma, in the yajna spirit. All right, next verse.
यज्ञाशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात्. The righteous who eat the remnants of the sacrifices are freed from all sins, but those sinful ones who cook food only for their own sake verily eat but sin.
So here he's drawing on the same metaphor of the home, where the mother of the family is cooking food and takes the thali to the murti, an offering to the god. And if you don't do that, here Krishna says you eat sin. So the deeper meaning, if we act in the world for selfish reasons, my profit, my ambition, my income, my status, my power. He says here we are eating sin. Doesn't mean you're an evil person. It means you are creating more and deeper vasana. Which further encrusts the psyche, impels us over and over again into the wheel of samsara, the wheel of rebirth. So there's nobody who's going to give you a gold star for acting righteously. Nor is there a God who's ticking off with black marks if you act selfishly. But from a spiritual standpoint, there's a huge difference between the yogi and the bhogi. Bhoga is living life for enjoyment. The philosophy of the bogey, happiness comes as the result of satisfying as many desires as possible. Screw other people. The end result of that is more desires, more agitation, more discontent, more fear. A yogi practices yoga, which means union. A yogi also wants to be happy. But a yogi lives life from the philosophical perspective that the way to be happy is to reduce the number of desires entertained. Act in the world according to your swadharma in the yajna spirit. You exhaust vasanas without creating new ones. Act in the world as a bhogi. Give me more, give me more, give me more. More vasana, more suffering. You choose. All right, one more.
It's 2 shlokas together.
Well, we'll just do both of them. The 2 more.
Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhava yagyat bhavati parjanyo yagya karma samudbhava karma brahmodbhavam viddhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagye pratishtitam. From food come forth beings, from rain food is produced. From sacrifice arises rain, and sacrifice is born of action. Know you that action comes from Brahma, the creator, and Brahmaji comes from the imperishable. Therefore, the all-pervading Brahman, or the God principle, ever rests in sacrifice.
This has a lot of mystic symbolism, and we don't have enough time to go into it. So which verses are those?
14 and 15.
We'll repeat 14 and 15 and start with those next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.